Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit of week 3 and then starts and sits for week 4 of fantasy football. We got Shane, Kevin, Jarrell, and me, myself, Zach. So just get right back into it. What do we think about week 3, guys? What are some favorite plays? Personally, I'll start it off. Jordan Davis with the blocked field goal. Not only did we block it once with Jalen Carter, right after that, Jordan Davis did it again. Not only did he block the field goal, he was then able to pick up the ball and run it all the way back for what was it, like 60 yards for a
Yeah,
touchdown?
61 yards.
Crazy from the big man, dude. You know, as an Eagles fan, I didn't even actually get to see the play because I was just so happy that we blocked the field goal. I was up and cheering. You guys saw it. Didn't even see him running it back for the touchdown.
Yeah, that
You
was
were you were celebrating too early, but that paid off.
It did. It did. I was very happy.
Yeah,
I thought we were going to lose there.
well, I
which is
think it
great.
was yeah, it was crazy because we're all watching the games together, and the 1 o'clock games right there, and those 3 games were just all of a sudden became crazy. And I know the Jets Bucks game was a little slower. It took a little longer to get over, but that game just started getting wild. And then of course the Packers game with the Browns, it was such a slow game for so long, low scoring. I know we were joking with Drell about that, and it looked like it was going to be an easy win for the Packers, just low scoring, and then that changed. And
Yeah.
obviously, Drell didn't like that, but I mean, it was just a crazy ending. And Zach was all, in a more of a, mood of, oh man, my Eagles are losing, and then all of a
Yeah,
sudden
first
he's
half.
on a high. It was crazy.
Yeah, we all thought they were going to lose. To be honest, it's kind of crazy how all 3 games ended the exact same.
Yeah,
Like
I feel
the
like
three
I feel
games.
like for me, it's like kind of like a sigh of relief because our biggest thing was just not being able to pass the ball at all. Like that
Yeah,
that was what was killing us, and that was what was really getting me butthurt there
yeah,
because I was thinking I was like, how are we going to win any games if we can't pass the ball? And then the Rams have a good D line, and they showed that they could stuff the run. So in that second half, Jalen Hurts coming out throwing for 209 yards and 3 touchdowns. Even if we would have lost that game, that alone would have just made me feel a lot better.
yeah.
But for Jarrell here, obviously he didn't get on the good side of there. Packers ended up getting upset by the Browns. Jarrell, you got any words for that you want to give us?
It was a crap game all around, man. I'll be happy to go turn things around this week versus Dallas and show everybody what we really have. I'm glad we lost now instead of later in the season when it probably actually really mattered and something important was on the line. But I'm not worried. Season will still be good.
It's crazy you guys beat the Lions, and you just lose to the Browns. Which I will say the Browns do have a better defense than the Lions, but still, it's the Lions, right? The top 3
Yeah,
team in the league right now.
Yeah, but to
I'd say look.
be fair too, and Drell, not to interrupt you there, but easily could have been those 3 teams could all lost. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It was like
Yeah.
in the the Buccaneers, they didn't play very well against the Jets.
No.
They did what they had to do. Baker came back and did his clutch fourth quarter, but I mean they could have lost. It was close, and the Eagles, like I know Zach thought, looked like they were about to lose. So it almost 3 of the top teams almost lost in that time period. One of them did. But I was looking at when you look at the undefeated teams right now, a lot of those, I mean, it's hard to pick who is really doing the
Yeah.
best, and it's surprising to me. I have to almost look at the Chargers and the Colts as doing sort of the best because they haven't had those like close games where they almost lost. Well, the Chargers battled it out. So, I mean, but,
Division rival.
yeah, with a division rival. So that wasn't really a big deal. And both teams are expected to, right now compete for the division. The Chiefs are actually, people starting to think they may be third place in that division, So yeah, that's what I'm saying. It looks a little weird right now because, it sort of woke up teams, I think, and a lot of teams lose games during the season. That's not abnormal. But it was definitely an eye opener for some of these teams and fans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had I feel like over the weekend we had a lot of injuries, probably the most injuries we've had so far of any week of football for
Yeah.
2025.
All of
One
our
of the
teams.
big ones, one of the
It's
big ones
crazy.
we probably should go over. Kevin with the Bucks,
Mike
Mike
Evans.
Evans, man, I saw he's probably going to be out for 3 to
Uh,
4 weeks. How are we
three
feeling about that?
weeks. I mean, good and bad. Now I say good because I think Emeka is gonna have a lot of spotlight. He's good for the. If you have him on your fantasy, start him right now. I don't know why he's on your bench to begin with, but start him right now. Like he didn't even have a touchdown last week, and he had like one of the best like plays against Sauce Gardner. So I feel like he's gonna really be the future of the Bucks. But you just have to stay healthy. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin getting hurt consistently every single season is really bad for the Bucks. I just feel like they have to strengthen that like wide receiver core because they are good. They're one of the best cores in the whole NFL. Just they are so unhealthy. They just get hurt so easily. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. That trio has definitely had high standards coming in, and I think
Yeah.
Emeka Ibuka has kind of met those expectations so far.
Mhm.
We've only seen 3 weeks of football, but 100% on that. For the last team here, we got Shane. Yours was a little bit a week earlier in the week. We had the Bills game, but it was a closer game than we thought.
It was a good
I
game.
think that does show, gives you a little bit of momentum, a little bit. I would feel a little bit better if I was a Dolphins fan seeing after that game. But how are we feeling right now, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, I think most Dolphin fans are not, that confident that we're going to have like a winning season or anything right now.
Yeah,
We still, hope and cheer for things, but yeah, to be fair, after that game one where we looked horrible and got blown away and, it was just a devastating loss that wasn't expected by Dolphin fans. We came into the next 2 weeks and we had an opportunity to beat the Patriots. We should have beat them. Teams like the Dolphins right now find ways to lose, but they should have been able to beat the Buffalo Bills. I mean, that game really, I think we surprised Buffalo, and honestly, to me, it worries me a little bit because Buffalo's defense allowing a team like Miami, who has been struggling, to score like they did, and of course, Buffalo had a lot of points scored on them by the Ravens. I'm a little worried that they're a high explosive offense, but their defense may actually keep them from going to the Super Bowl. But for the Dolphins, with those penalties, they really, they killed themselves, but we stopped them multiple times in the fourth quarter. So these are things to, to sort of build on. And I think what a lot of Dolphin fans listening to the Dolphin media, the Dolphin fans out there, this game this week with the Jets is huge. If we lose to the Jets, I think most people are thinking, okay, we're done. This season, you might as well just try to get the top pick because then I think if we lose to the Jets, and I think we got the Panthers coming up, if we lose to those kind of teams right now, then we're going to be guaranteed a top 5 pick in the draft for sure.
Yeah. Do you think they'll go for the quarterback if they do get the first? Or do you still believe Tua
No,
still has it?
I think, I mean, it's obvious. I think they know that,
Yeah.
they're sort of stuck with Tua right now with the contract and stuff.
Mhm.
But, no, I would believe they would consider. I mean, it really depends on who is going, what quarterbacks,
Yeah.
things like that. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they had a high pick that they would consider one of the top quarterbacks, unless the season goes and then they get a chance to try like Ewers or something and he looks really good, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't try to give him an opportunity if we keep losing just to see what he can do out there.
I agree with you.
100%, 100%.
Another question I do have: do you think if they really do lose to the you said what they're facing? What they're
Jets?
facing again? Jets with a backup quarterback. Do you think Mike McDaniels is truly going to leave, or do you think he has a couple more games if they lose?
It's, in my opinion, it's hard to say. I mean, I think the GM, the coach, a lot of the players like Tua and even Tyreek, all them depend on their winning or not. And if
Yeah.
we keep losing, yeah, there's going to be a clock on the coach. But I don't even think, obviously that's just the most common thing is that the coach would get hacked. And, I think the GM would lose his job by the end of the year. And then they may even trade. That's when the talk about trading Reek to somebody is going to start picking up, because that's when you can get value before the trade deadline and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So that's going to be a small week 3 recap that we have there. We'll go ahead and we'll get into the next part. Starts and sits for week 4. All right. We're going to go ahead and we're going to kick it off with starts. I will be the one to start it off here. The first start we have for tonight, Jake Ferguson is a must start for week 4. And let me tell you why. CeeDee Lamb just went out, and we all seen that. You know, he tried to come back in with his toe injury and couldn't make it back in. As soon as that did happen, they could not stop giving Ferguson the ball. He did end up with 14 targets and caught 13 of those passes. That alone is just 13 points without even the yardage. He does have the Packers this week. The Cowboys do. And I don't really necessarily think it's going to be a close game. I do think the Packers will put a good whooping on them, but I do think it's going to be enough for Jake Ferguson to put up fantasy points. That Packers defense is good, but not against the tight ends. They're actually ranked right now 27th against all tight ends. And every single week the Packers have versed a team. That offense, their receiving leader is actually their tight end. So to put that in aspect here, week 1, they went ahead and they versed the Lions. Sam Laporta led the Lions, 6 catches for 79 yards. Week 2, the Commanders, Zach Ertz, 6 catches, 64 yards, 1 touchdown. Week 3, David Njoku on the Browns. He had 5 catches for 40 yards, leading the team. All those tight ends seem to be the ones that were leading their team at the time, and I think they're going to continue doing that throughout the year, which Jake Ferguson will be doing this week. I think Jake Ferguson is going to have a good week with no CeeDee Lamb going against the Packers. He's projected 11.5 points right now, and I think he easily beats that, probably gets around 15 mark. What do we think about that one?
No, yeah, I think that's really good, actually. That's not like all the George Kittle, Brock Bowers, like a lot of the tight ends that got picked first are hurt, except for Trey McBride, you know. So I feel like he's pretty good. I like him. I don't have him on my team, but I would pick him if I had him.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, it's going in a good situation because I think what you guys mentioned is, you know, he has been consistent, especially the last couple of weeks. He's getting double-digit points, and you know, he's really gonna step into a great situation for fantasy wise. Now, game wise, obviously, I think, you know, it's probably a bad time for the Cowboys. I really do believe the Packers are going to be mad, pissed off, and they're probably going to bounce back wanting a victory this week, you know, against Dallas, who is, you know, they should be able to move on, and, you know, and I think that defense will put a lot of pressure on them. But I think you're right. CeeDee Lamb being out, they're going to have to lean on what they have. They're going to probably double team, you know, obviously Pickens and their wide receivers. I mean, they're try, but how they move around the tight end, most likely he's probably going to still be able to get the points. And I know his projection is low enough where I think you probably will win this. You know, I think he'll get more than he's projected.
Yeah. Now, I hope none of you guys have this guy. I wanted to talk about, what do you think about him versus Tucker Kraft? They're playing each other. Do you think one's going to do better than the other? You think Ferguson's going to do better than Kraft this game?
Gerald, do you want to go ahead and answer since that's your team?
I would say he probably would. It's kind of hard. Green Bay is always hard, which I know we talked about this when everybody's over this past weekend, is that we're kind of like a committee of receivers. We don't really have one that we focus on. We pass to everybody. So it's kind of hard to say, hey, Kraft could have an excellent game one day and he could have one catch the next. You know, it's so hard to pick with Packers in reference to that. That's why I love drafting their wide receivers for fantasy, but then I hate it at the same time because I never know if I need to play them or not because I don't know if they're going to do good. But in reference to this question, I do believe probably Ferguson will have a better game, just due to the fact with the usage and, like Zach was explaining, the tight ends have had success against us, which I'm fine with that. I'm fine with tight ends having success against us because that means, hey, we're stopping the number 1 and number 2 wide receivers. So I'll take those little tight ends. We just have to have a better gameplay this game. I do believe we'll go in and win, but I agree. Ferguson will probably do well this week against us. If anything, they'll have to get rid of the ball fast because Parsons is coming after him, and he's going to have to get it to somebody quick because Parsons has already said, I'm coming for his, you know what.
And that's exactly what was going to be my next point. I think that like a lot of the times what Packers' game plan is to try to keep everything in front of them. So these quarterbacks with Micah Parsons now on that D line is getting to the quarterbacks pretty quickly, are having to get the ball out quick, and you're going to have to check down the ball, meaning either the running back or the tight end most of the time is going to get that ball. So I do think that's probably a big reason why we're seeing this trend with the tight ends. But for fantasy wise, we love to see that. Any tight end owners that burst the Packers. So. That would be my must start for this week is Jake Ferguson.
Yeah, and just before we move on, just expand on that. The Tucker Craft Jake one is an interesting question because I think Jake is the safer pick. He's more consistent, and I think they will lean on him. But Kevin, if Kraft does get more points, I think you're going to see him he's going to have a repeat of like a couple weeks ago when he got like 24 points.
Yeah.
Because Dallas's defense against the pass and all that is pretty horrible. And, Green Bay has a better defense. So technically, I think Tucker has a higher ceiling. I think he can get that 24 points or something. And Jake is more probably 15 to 20 points, good game. But I would be, it's safer in my opinion to pick Jake, but Tucker could have a higher game.
Yeah, definitely. He's definitely like a boom or bust type of tight end.
Yeah.
You got to play matchups, and you never know. Drell kind of covered it well earlier, saying that there's kind of a committee over there, so you really don't know who's going to be the wide receiver one of that week. It could be Josh Jacobs for all we know. But all right, we'll go ahead and we'll move on from Jake Ferguson. Shane, do you want to go ahead and give us your must start for week 4?
Yeah, sure. My must start for week 4 is going to be Juwan Johnson of the Saints. I mean, he's just a consistent playmaker for the Saints right now. He's probably the most reliable option they have in the passing game. He's consistently getting the same amount of points pretty much every week. And this guy, he's just fun to watch out there. I mean, when you look at him, he had a little bit more of a down week this last week, compared to the first couple weeks, but still in a PPR league, he got over 10. He hasn't got less than 11 points in any of the weeks. Week 1, he was 15.6, 15.9 in week 2, and he went down against a strong Seattle defense to 11.1. So, I don't see any way with the matchup, what they're going to be doing this week. To me, he's a must start every week right now until something changes because he's just somebody that they're looking at. And mainly one of the things I notice is they're looking a lot in the red zones for him. So he has an opportunity to get a touchdown very often, but he's definitely the go target in the Saints receiving core.
Yeah.
The Saints actually made it into the red zone.
Yeah, that's the only problem.
Right. That's probably the biggest issue with him.
Yeah.
For Juwan Johnson, I think that I would have to agree. I think you kind of do have to start him because he is like the number 2 tight end right now. And he has not gone under a 90% snap percentage, meaning he is seeing the field, and they're really using him as a wide receiver. So knowing that, I would want my tight end to be there for fantasy. That exactly where Juwan Johnson is right now. The only con I really see for this week is that they do versus Buffalo. That is kind of a tougher defense for tight ends. Right now, they're actually ranked number 2 against tight ends of giving them up points. So they have been doing pretty well against tight ends, but like I just said, I don't think I can't bring myself to bench a player that's getting receiving work, especially when they're seeing a 90% snap percentage. So I would agree with on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, Jarrell, any more comments on that?
I was actually going to say the opposite. I was going to say Bills don't have the best defense. I feel like they're going to try to lock down Alvin Kamara. I don't know who their wide receiver is because Olave got hurt, right? Or is it still Olave?
No, he's playing in.
Still there? They're probably going to try to lock down Olave. So I think he's going to have a better chance of getting points here against the Bills.
Yeah, Olave has been quietly doing really well over there, and I think you're right. That's one of the reasons I picked him is I think they're going to be looking at Kamara and Olave and trying to lock those guys down, which opens up. He gets a lot of he gets a lot of targets over there as a tight end. That's one of the reasons I like him. Every game he's getting 8, 9, 10 targets. So that's not always common, and we know that tight ends. There's only so many of them that consistently give you points. They're all a lot of them are boom or bust. and you just don't know what you're going to get. But when you have, a team that's struggling over there, but you have a couple other targets like Kamara, Olave's been, I don't know if you guys knew, he leads the league right now in targets.
Yeah, he's on
And
pace
I
for
was,
like
Really?
210 or something like that.
yeah,
I saw
it's
that.
I didn't know
crazy.
that.
Yeah, Rattler is just throwing to him as much as he can. Yeah, and when I looked at it, the first game he had 13 targets, Olave, 10 targets in the second game, and 14 against Seattle. So I'm not talking. I know I'm not saying. Actually, I think Olave is a good start too. But I'm saying I think Kevin's right. They see that, they know that they're going to have to put resources toward Olave and Kamara, so that's going to open up the tight end.
All right. Perfect.
Guess I'll go with mine. For week 4, starting Zay Flowers. Now I know he did get 3 or 4 points last week. He didn't get that many points, but I think this week he's gonna bounce back. He's playing against, or they're playing against the Chiefs this week. I think they're gonna ball out. Being like pseudo rivals, their defense isn't that great against wide receivers when you think about it. And with Derrick Henry fumbling once or twice every game, I feel like he's not going to get it as much week 4. I feel like Lamar Jackson's going to throw it more consistently to him and to dang, I'm blanking with names, man. Their tight end over there, Mark Andrews.
Oh yeah,
he did last week. He got 25 points last week, which is crazy. I feel like he's gonna throw it more consistently because of Derrick Henry's fumbling. Now, I'm not saying Derrick Henry's bad. I'm just saying with him not playing to his maximum, I feel like Lamar's gonna throw the ball more instead this week. What do you guys think?
I think you're gonna take the first L, in my opinion, right there. I think this is gonna be your first negative one right there.
No, I've gotten a couple.
Yeah, well, you got an A the last 2 weeks, and I don't think you're getting it this week, buddy. So
I
disagree with your prediction there.
I believe in Zay Flowers, buddy.
Well, the interesting part, I think game wise, this is going to be a fun game.
Yeah.
Because the Chiefs, they can't afford to keep losing or anything. They slipped in with a little bit of a hope here now, and of course the Ravens, they do not want to go 1-3. So I think they're going to be throwing everything they have at this team, and even if they lose, I think they're gonna spread it around. This could be potentially even a high scoring game with what we've seen with the Raven games, and Zay Flowers normally doesn't stay, he's not one of those receivers that when he has a bad week, you almost can expect him to have a good week the next week. And this is one of his better matchups. Kansas City, is considered a 4-star matchup this week when you look at most of the rankings and stuff like that. So, I think he's going to bounce back, and I think, I've been high on him all year anyways, but it just seems like the matchup, the situation, the targets, he's got too many targets. Normally they were in a tough game with Detroit. Detroit just took over that game. You know what I mean? And it was a game script that really brought him back down. But before that, he had 11 targets against Cleveland, which is a good defense. We saw that with the Packers. And then, Buffalo, he had 9 targets and 7 catches, both of those. So, yeah, I see, if you look at the data, that's why I love after week 3, we've seen the data now. Statistically, there's no way he's going to go back to a 3, I think. It's going to be more of, you're going to see those targets up there in 8, 9, 10 at least.
Real quick, Zach, I know you want to go. But speaking of the statistics there, Shane, I did actually look up his statistics versus the Chiefs. Last season, out of 2 games, the man only had 11 catches for 152 yards and 1 touchdown. So that's the one game he had 5 receptions. The other game he had 6. That's not big points right there going against him. So that's why I think the Chiefs have his number. And I don't have any belief in the Ravens after these games this season. I think they are probably the most overrated team in the league. They can't win a game. They lose it in the fourth quarter.
That's a hot take and a half.
Ridiculous.
Right
there. That is a hot take.
Go ahead.
I'll have to come back a little bit on that. I do agree with you. I think the Ravens defense is not very good. And, too many people score a lot of points on them and stuff. So I can understand that. But I think their offense is still pretty powerful. And I would
Yeah.
have to argue yes, he may have struggled on the Chiefs last year, but I don't think there's anybody saying that Chiefs defense looks anything close this year what it was last year. They really made the Super Bowl on that defensive
Defense.
run.
Yeah.
The defense did, and their defense has not looked good this year at all. It's statistically it's a lot lower than it was last year at this time. So yeah, I understand your point, but I don't think Kansas. That's why where they're at in the division. Their defense is not, because Mahomes hasn't really been doing bad with the injuries. He's been doing as best as he can, but that defense is just not stopping the people. And we saw that with the Chargers and things like that, So I don't know. I understand your point. Maybe, he doesn't do well against the Chiefs, but I have a feeling this is a different Chiefs defense.
Okay. Yeah.
Fair.
I think I'd probably more agree. I'll keep mine quick. I think I'm agreeing more with Jarrell. A lot of good stuff was said on both sides here. But the big thing I think that with the Ravens, they're just inconsistent. It kind of reminds me of somewhat of like the Packers. I feel like there's not really a wide receiver one every single week. Like if there's going to be one, yes, it's going to be Zay Flowers. But I think they spread the ball around. Kevin kind of said that earlier with Mark Andrews getting a lot of the work last week. And, sometimes it's Rashad Bateman. So when Isaiah Likely's playing, sometimes it's him. So sometimes we'll see the most random guys just pop off on that team. So I really think they just spread the ball around. So for me, I don't think Zay Flowers is as consistent as I think Shane and Kevin more maybe invested in on him. But myself, I think that he's definitely a start. I just don't know if he's a must start in my eyes. So that's where I agree with Drew. I don't know about the Ravens are overrated though.
Both
take a
teams.
step back on that.
Both teams are 1-2. Okay, so it's not like one is 2-1. They're both 1-2. They got the same record, but they're both
right. You're right.
Somebody's coming out 1-3.
That's tough. That's tough. If you asked anybody at the beginning of the season if either one of these teams would be going into this game and possibly be 1-3, nobody would believe you. That would be a hot take, right? You tell anybody that. It's crazy.
I mean, I was gonna say the Packers did lose to a 0-2 team. I'm just saying.
Okay.
I'm trying to find the relevancy on that.
No, there's nothing. He just wants to rage bait and toss a little thing in there. Bro, the Bucks haven't blown anybody out this week or this year so far. Okay,
you lost to the Browns.
Okay, when you guys lose your first game, don't worry. Don't worry. I'll remind you.
Hey, buddy. Hey, believe me. Next week is not it. That's what I'm. We could lose the whole entire season. Next week is not it though. That's what I'm saying.
Real quick, but how do you feel now that Mike Evans is hurt? He's not going to get his 1,000 yards this season. Then all you Bucs fans can't say, "Oh, he's the greatest" because he gets 1,000 yards every single season. That's all y'all got. So guess what? That's
wait
now, buddy.
What's your wide receiver? 1 or 2?
We don't have one.
Or 3
wide receiver by committee
or 4. I can't name one wide receiver in that team.
Yes, you can because you bring up Matthew Golden all the time.
Yeah,
I think you actually have him on one of your fantasy.
I do.
You didn't trade me for him.
You didn't want to trade me for him, bro. What are you doing? I thought you were a fan.
Anyways, so Kevin's done. We're going to move on to my must start of the week. Get past the rage baiting from Kevin. I'm going to go with the brand new starter announced this week for the New York Giants, Jackson Dart, as a must start. I think he's going to come in. He's going to give that team life. He's going to freaking ball out. Man had an excellent preseason for when he was in there. Very respectable numbers. I did actually pull it up. I can't find it right now just because I was going to hit some stats. But I think he was so he is 32 for 47, 372 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 47 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown. So, I mean, with the weapons they have there in New York and Scatabo starting to break out, I think he's coming in. They're winning this week, and he's going to be a must start for the fantasy.
Yeah, I actually thought this one, I think it really just depends on what your team looks like. For me, I don't necessarily think he's a must start. For example, I have a super flex league and I just picked him up. I had to spend some good fab on him, meaning you start 2 quarterbacks there. And I have to make the decision if I want to start Jackson Dart or if I want to start CJ Stroud. So I feel like if you have that kind of choice, then, now it comes a little bit more tricky because CJ Stroud has been struggling and he's been looking really
Yeah.
bad. And in that league, passing touchdowns are only 4 points, not 6. So anyone who's a little bit more mobile, who we've seen Jackson Dart run the ball around a little bit, I feel like, in those type of leagues, you might want to lean towards them. And he is versing a good Chargers team, but it's not like, you can't pass against them. And I still think that he could possibly put up good numbers. I would rather be able to sit him this week if I can to see what he could do, and then maybe next week start him when he versus the Saints. But I do definitely think that he's not necessarily a must sit, though. I think that Jackson Dart, for some people, might need to use him for this week. So very interesting one, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, I love Jackson Dart, and I think I don't know if you were watching that Giants game, especially at the end of the game, I was like, man, you got to start this young quarterback because I mean, it looked bad, and it just looked like they had nothing going on at that point, and the team just looked dejected. And from what I understand from watching all the shows right now, the Giants have all this excitement knowing that he's starting, and he does bring a different dynamic, being able to do the running and the passing. So it's going to change it up, So I think there's a lot of excitement, and I think this is a tough pick for a must start. So I think Drell is definitely he's going for the home run swing here because I think he's either going to be a really good payoff for Drell in this pick, or he could completely flop. Yeah, and the only reason I say that is because they're playing the Chargers, and it's really going to be a tough game, and that's really where I see it. It can be either a flop or really high. Now next week, they go and I think he plays the Saints. That's a lot different game right there. But the young guy coming in on his first game against the Chargers defense, he's going to either really do really well or he may struggle. I don't think he's going to flop so much because I like him. I think this guy's going to really be dynamic. So I know what Jarrell's going with. He's going with that chance that he may step in and they don't have any film really on him from playing in the pros that much besides preseason. He could come in and do really well, even if they lose the game. He may have a really good game, but it is going to be a tough matchup. So I can see both sides of this.
Yeah, I'm just basically I'm feeding off of that excitement, like you were saying. Like you could see in preseason when he came into the game, it just seemed like a different atmosphere when he was in there playing. Players were more involved. They were excited. Seemed like they were just doing better as a all on the field. So I think he's going to come in, and that's just going to everybody's going to feed off of it, and it's going to take them to the next level. Listen, man, as Kevin's probably going to point out, Packers lost to the 0-2 Browns. Listen, man, if we can lose to the Browns, okay, the Chargers can lose to the Giants. And it's funny because I remember us talking before the season how many games we thought Russell Wilson would even last as starter, especially being in New York and Big Ten. I think one of us, we'll have to go back and check the tape, but I think one of us said like week 3 or 4 he'd be out of there. I can't remember who it was, but whoever it was, you were right. So.
Yeah, that's definitely predicted the future a little bit. I just feel like, with the Giants, like obviously you hear the Giants and straight up that sounds like a bad team, but we do have to remember that they do have some studs over there. I mean, they have Malik
Yeah.
Neighbors. That's, he's already shown that he could be an elite wide receiver. Cam Scatterbo definitely looks like a receiving back. I mean, he looks like he could do anything. And Wandale, Darius Slayton, Theo Johnson, all those guys are capable of catching the ball. So I think Jackson Dart can make it work. Like Jarrell said, but I just wish it wasn't maybe against the Chargers team. Maybe somebody that's a little easier, not coming off 3-0. But if Jackson Dart comes out here and he punches the Chargers in the face and they win, oh my, you're gonna feel real good having him on your roster.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like that team just needs time. Really, they're rebuilding, and in a couple of years they'll be a threat.
Yeah, because they have good defensive weapons too. It's just.
Yeah.
They definitely have some holes, but they're heading in the right direction. I think I agree with Shane. I think Jackson Dart was a pretty good draft pick, and a lot of people clown them for trading back up to get him, but I think he can be something good as long as they build around him.
Yeah, I think he's going to be exciting to watch.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, that's going to wrap it up for our must start. So we're going to now go off onto our must sits, starting with me. My must sit is actually my week 3 MVP of last week, David Montgomery. I know he just came off of a monster game against the Ravens in Sunday Night Football. But this week I have him for a sit. He is versus the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns, if they have anything, they have a defense. On offense, they're not really much, but on defense, they look spectacular. They just showed it against the Green Bay Packers team, who is a good offense. And right now, the Browns are actually number 2 against the running backs. So they have, out of all teams, they have put up the second least points against them. They've versed some studs so far this year too, and it's going to get spicier and spicier as I go. But in week 1, they had Chase Brown. He had 21 carries for only 43 yards. That's literally 2 yards per carry. And I know Chase Brown has been kind of struggling this year, with the bad O-line. So let's go into week 2 here. Derrick Henry with 11 carries only had 23 yards. That's 2.1 yards per attempt. And then let's go back to week 3 last week where they actually won. Josh Jacobs, another fantasy stud, had 16 carries for only 30 yards. That's literally below 2 yards per carry. So they seem like they could actually stuff the run game. And it seems like you want to more pass on the Browns, and I think that is what the Lions are going to have to do this weekend. And it's already bad enough that Montgomery is going to have to split carries. He has to really see what he can get because, he's really going to get max 12 attempts. So he's going to have to do with what he can, and he's really only seeing a snap percentage of 40%, where Gibbs hasn't gone under 55% yet. So it does seem that Gibbs is getting majority of the work like they said they would. And, he took that step up and has a hard matchup this week. I'm going to go ahead and sit David Montgomery, even though he just came off of a very good game in Sunday Night Football.
I actually disagree with you. I feel like after him having that good of a performance, I feel like he's going to get the ball more. He might even be. Now I'm not saying Gibbs is better than Montgomery, or I'm saying Montgomery's better than Gibbs. I'm just saying that if his performance keeps on keeping up, that he might be wide receiver 1 in the next 2-3 years. Who knows?
Wide receiver,
running back,
running back.
I think we could all agree that David Montgomery could be a running back 1 on a lot.
Yeah, a lot,
like 100%. I agree with you on that. Yeah, it's just. He has Jahmyr Gibbs, man. Jahmyr Gibbs is a lot better in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I love Jahmyr Gibbs, and I'm a Jahmyr Gibbs glazer. But I think that he's elite, and I think it's hard. And David Montgomery will steal some goal line work, but he does feel like he's very touchdown dependent, and I don't think he's going to punch it in the end zone this week against the Browns.
Yeah, I'll jump in here real quick. This is a tough one for me, to be honest, because one of the things I would recommend to people at this moment is anybody that's going against Cleveland, really consider your running backs. Do you have anybody better? Because when it comes down to it, they're gonna. I don't mean better, but meaning going to get more points for the week. Because it's just been a pattern of Cleveland shutting people down. Now, the other side of that coin is they haven't really matched up with a team with that kind of, 2 running back. That running back committee is something that's pretty unique in what they're going to see so far with Cleveland. But with what they've seen, they have shut very good teams down with very good running backs. So I don't know if, they're going to be able to do the same thing against both of them. But I do understand what Zach is saying. I do see a lot of the rankings have dropped Montgomery down. Like Fantasy Pros has him down in like the 29th running back. So if that's true, he could still get 8, 10, 9, 11 points. But there may be a whole bunch of other running backs out there from Swift or Junkins to Scatterboo to Jaylen Warren that are all projected to get higher than that. So I could understand that, because, depending on what you have on your team, you may be forced to put Montgomery in there, but you may have other running backs on your roster that just may get more points this week,
Yeah, it definitely depends who you got there. And it's just, for me, just to kind of go off what you said earlier, they haven't really versed a 2-set running backs who's, been pretty good. I feel like Montgomery does fall in line more of like maybe Derrick Henry and, possibly on the run game with Josh Jacobs. So that's kind of where my point is there. If anything, if any running back's going to do good this game, I do think it will be Gibbs because of the receiving work. Because Jacobs did actually not do too bad last week in fantasy, but that's because he had like 5 receptions over 50 yards. So obviously, if you're being able to pass the ball a little bit, I don't see that more as the Montgomery. I'm not saying he can't catch it all. I just think if there's going to be any receiving work, it's going to go to Gibbs. So I think this is more of a Gibbs week. Jared Goff is going to have to throw the ball if they want to put some points on the board against the tough Cleveland Browns defense.
Yeah, and just one thing on stat wise, Montgomery's been doing well because of, usually he's been getting touchdowns, but he's only been getting the ball about 11 or 12 times a game, which is not horrible, bad, or anything. But, if he doesn't get a touchdown or, then the numbers fantasy wise are going to be a lot less, because he may get like 40, 50, 60 yards, but, that's not going to be a lot of points if he doesn't get a touchdown. So you do have to concern yourself with that.
All right, so just to go kind of off that, just a quick question so we can go into the next one. But like, for example, Chase Brown. Would you rather have Chase Brown, who's versus the Broncos, who seemed receiving backs and seemed to do decent against them, or would you rather have David Montgomery? That one I feel like is more even, and that one's kind of tough. But who do you guys go there, Chase Brown or David Montgomery this week?
Montgomery.
Montgomery.
Oh,
I'd probably go Chase Brown just because they just stuff Jacobs nonstop. So I totally agree with you in your opinion on that matter with that defense.
yeah, that's tough. I mean, Chase Brown has a better matchup, but just they've been doing so bad. I know I seen projections of him getting like 12 points, and I'm like, I'm not even sure he's going to get 12 points. They haven't been, the Cincinnati looks bad right now. They're just struggling, it's just, so I don't know. Yeah. I honestly, if I had that pick, I would be looking for somebody else. I'm not real big on Chase Brown this week right now.
So your answer is David Montgomery, right?
I'd probably start Montgomery over, even with the Cleveland thing, just because Chase has been, he hasn't been getting anything.
Yeah, and I guess we'll see it. Just for a quick answer, I'd probably go Chase Brown for this week over David Montgomery. So we'll do that kind of as a little side thing, and we'll see if Chase Brown does better than David Montgomery. Us two against you two here. But all right, Shane, do you want to go ahead and give us our next sit then?
Yeah, what my next sit is, there's a lot of people I could sit out there this week, but I went with Trevor Lawrence for my must sit for week 4. And really, just to get into that, is he's not been really providing any kind of fantasy output at all. And his team right now, they're struggling. And they're not really having any kind. You can't even point to any of the receivers and go, oh, who's going to be really good this week. He's just been struggling on that. He's just, the input's going down each week. He's not been looking, he's ranked really far down the list this week now. And, for all the quarterbacks out there, there's so many other ones that you could pick up and, would give you a better opportunity. I mean, they got him ranked behind like Tua and stuff like that now.
Wow.
And the worst part about it is, what I'm thinking is, I would actually strongly consider him a drop candidate, not just don't start, drop, because they have a rough batch of games coming up. He struggled against Houston, got like 7 or 8 points depending on your points in your league last week, and now he goes against the 49ers, and then the Kansas City Chiefs, the Seattle Seahawks, and then the Rams before they go into their bye. That's a stretch of defenses that are not that easy to go against, especially on pass, and they have a pass rush and things like that.
Niners just lost Bosa though, so they're technically not as strong on the defense.
Yeah, maybe that might show. But Lawrence, all 3 games he's had at least 1 interception, 2 of them against Cincinnati. So he's didn't even get a touchdown last week. So for me, I'm mainly saying I'm looking at his record. I think he's a must sit. There's too many other quarterbacks that you could put ahead of him. Like I said, I'd rather start a Tua this week against the Jets, even a Carson Wentz against Pittsburgh. Bryce Young, you could see what he did last week, even though he's up and down. Even Penix, how they struggled, I see him ahead of Lawrence this week. So, for me, he's a must sit.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, how many points is he slotted to get? Dude.
I think
can't be over 20. Has to be like
17. I think he's around, most of them around 14 or 15 points is his projection.
Whoa, that's low.
Wow.
That's very low. Yeah, I would. I'm going to second you. I'll leave mine really quick because all my notes in here you've actually kind of already covered, Shane. You literally say everything that I have here. The one thing that I know it's scary because the Jags look like they have good weapons on there. Travis Hunter, BTJ, Brenton Strange, but it's not. It's like Trevor Lawrence isn't really connecting with any of them. Like it just, we're not like they're getting targets. If you look at all their targets, they're getting a lot of them. It's just they're not really getting the catches, and sometimes it's the receiver's fault, sometimes it's the quarterback's fault. But it just seems like they cannot connect, and that offense cannot just do good under Liam Cohen. So I agree with you. I think Trevor Lawrence is becoming like a player that I'm going to pick up maybe against good matchups, because his only good week is against a bad Cincinnati Bengals defense. So maybe you can only start him when he has a good opponent, and that's not too many of his games this year. So
I won't say too much because my next pick is
kind
from
of
the
second
Jags.
pick. Yeah.
But I will say, is it really his fault? I haven't really been seeing like his games that much, but is it really his fault or is it his team's fault? Because I know a lot of them have been like drop balls. A lot
It's
of the
50.
receivers have drop balls.
Combination of both, yeah.
So
I say 50-50.
50-50. I agree with you there. I think 50-50, but you can't really put all the blame on the quarterback if the team as a whole is bad, right?
Yeah. No, and I go along with that, because when you look at fantasy and stuff, you sort of combine the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
You're looking at the defense they're going against, you're looking at how their players going. And I agree with you, Kevin. His team's not really been helping him a lot, and the Cincinnati game, when you look at like BTJ, he had 12 targets and only caught 4 of them. And some of that was his fault. Some of it was Trevor's fault. Some of the passes weren't good when you look at the highlights. Against Houston, BTJ had 6 targets. He only caught 2 of them. So it's been a combination. What you guys were mentioned too is it's just the team's struggling right now. They somehow got a win last week. They have enough to do that, but yeah, when you take BTJ and make him look like a mediocre receiver right now, he hasn't even got 10 points in fantasy football yet in any of the games. His highest game was 9 points in PPR. Right. So that's a sign.
Speaking of BTJ, so Shane doesn't steal Kevin's spotlight here on BTJ. Kevin, give us your must sit, man.
Yeah, all right, let's go. Building on that, my sit is Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, like, it's crazy how he was a round 2, round 3, like elite wide receiver that was still up on the board, and he has, like Shane said, hasn't hit 10 points yet. Last week he only had 7 points, which is crazy. That's like wide receiver 1 for most like fantasy teams that drafted him, because they drafted him very expensive. He's versing against the 49ers, which aren't an easy defense. Now, I do get it's 50-50 between him and Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence might have thrown some bad passes, but dude, he cannot catch a ball. He, like, every time I see a highlight, or not even a highlight, a low light, it's like over 5 minutes of just the same game, just drop. And it's bad. It's crazy for a wide receiver, like a stud, like Brian Thomas Jr., it is crazy. That's my sit for this week. I don't think he's going to go over 10 points against the Niners.
Ooh, not even over 10 points. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you, Kevin. He's the wide receiver 54 on this season. That's not even startable. You know what I mean? Like, you're not wanting that as you're on your fantasy roster. So he's been a huge letdown. And like you said, he is a high draft pick, second round, third round. Sometimes even, I think earlier on the season, he was actually a first round pick. So, that he has been a big letdown for teams. And I think him and Trevor Lawrence just really cannot connect, just to go back on what we were talking about Trevor Lawrence. Because if you looked at even last year, BTJ in the first half of the season wasn't doing too well. Trevor Lawrence goes down in that Houston game. Mac Jones comes in, and all of a sudden he's an elite all-star. So maybe he's just not compatible with T-Law. And then, sometimes that's okay. That's just what happens. But for fantasy-wise, that is not what we want to see. So I agree. I think BTJ, if you have a receiver that could go over him, I would want to bench BTJ this week until we can see until the Jaguars offense altogether can get it together, because it's getting ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
It's hard to defend him at this point.
It is.
All right, we'll go ahead and we'll unless you had one, Gerald, do you have anything to talk, or do you want to just go into the next one and talk about your sit?
No. I mean, I just to touch back on basically both of their picks. I mean, unfortunately, when one's not doing well, that doesn't help the other one out. So pretty much both their picks are making each other worse. So if you're not catching the ball, even if it's a good target, you're making your quarterback stats worse. If you're not catching the ball, then your stats are worse. So they're just kind of feeding off each other and whatever. But my sit of the week this week is probably going to have some controversy with it. I'm going to say stick with the wide receiver game, Jamar Chase. Okay. And you don't have to agree with me, and I'm totally fine with that. Normally, yes, he is a must start in all fantasy leagues, one of the best receivers in the league. But so far this season, he is not fantasy wise. Stats are out of the 3 games. First game, he only had 4.6 fantasy points, 2 receptions out of 5 targets. And that was with Joe Burrow in the game. Second week was his biggest game against Jacksonville. He had 36.5 fantasy points, but he also had 14 out of 16, 14 targets 16 targets, 14 catches. Third game with Jake Browning, back down to 8.9 points, 5 receptions, 6 targets. Jake Browning is not him. He is not connecting with Jamar Chase. He is it's just bad. It's bad in Cincinnati all around. Like you said, Chase Brown's not doing well. Jamar Chase isn't getting the targets, whether it's overthrown. He's dropping the ball. Ball's not in the right place. He is not a good fantasy option this week.
Wow.
Uh,
Very, very ballsy take, man.
Yeah.
Very ballsy take. Because if
I
he
have
comes
to
out
agree.
here and he puts up a 40-point game, he might have to retire
Right.
off social media.
Hey, you know what? It's totally possible. And, if he gets the targets, obviously, like in the second game there, he gets the targets, he catches, he makes the points. But I just don't think Jake Brown is going to be able to do that going against the Broncos this week, man. I just don't see it happening.
I would agree with Zach. Any other day or actually no, they're reversing lines after that. So never mind. They have a tough schedule altogether. But against against the Broncos, I don't believe. Actually, we were talking about this on Sunday. I feel like they should trade for Jameis. I mean, he's gonna have like 2-3 more interceptions, but at least Jamar is gonna get the ball and he might get a touchdown or two, right? I don't think he's going to be able to do it with Jake Browning, though. He did not do good.
You bring Jameis in, he'll be back as a must start.
He will definitely sling it if Jameis is in. Yeah, I'll do mine because on my notes, I literally don't have anything. I literally just put never sit Jamar Chase. So I obviously disagree with it because I just think Jamar Chase is just too elite of a player to bench, in my opinion. And I know he struggled last week and he struggled in week 1, but the Bengals always start off slow. In week 2, he did have all those targets, and I think that's what the Bengals are going to want to get back to. I think they're going to want to try to. They're going to force him the ball because they just lost badly this week. He didn't look good. I think they're going to try to force him the ball. He's going to get a lot of targets. They're going to want to get him in the open field to try to get touchdowns. So in my opinion, I'm not benching Jamar. Your team has to be pretty stacked to bench Jamar, but I do hear what you guys saying, and I do see the red flags, and obviously it's scary, but I just don't. I'm not benching talent like that.
So if you put Jamar Chase in and he's slotted, I don't even know, I didn't even look what he's slotted to get this week. Say it's 18 points, right? Say he's projected to get 18 points. You put him in there thinking he's going to get that much versus a wide receiver on your bench that's maybe slotted to get 12. Okay, 12 is not great, but it's decent. But then Jamar comes in. He's got a crappy offensive line. He's got a crappy quarterback. Man drops you 6 points again. The other wide receiver at least gets you that 12. So right there, that could cost you your fantasy game just in a difference of 6 points. Like I'm saying, I'm not saying that he's an overall always sit, but with the situation that he's in right now, to me, he's a must sit if you have another wide receiver that has around or even maybe possibly a little bit less points slotted for. So, but we'll see. Shane, what you think?
Oh man, this is a tough one. I can see the argument on both sides, so I understand what Jarrell is looking at, because what he says makes sense, and but there's a couple things I was looking at too on this is what's making it difficult for me. Couple things. One is what Zach says. You never usually want to bench your stud, so that's always a hard thing. But he did have the 2 performances that were, bad, the Cleveland game and the Minnesota game. But the one thing to make this a little quicker, the one thing in common with both of those is we know now that Cleveland has one of the top defenses out there. So I don't really hold it against him right there for that game. The Minnesota game, Minnesota really has a good defense, and Brian Flores is I know is known for one of the trickiest defenses out there. He's a really good, defensive mind. I think they overwhelmed the, Jake Browning in that one. Now, normally I would go along with that and go, hey, Denver's going to be doing the same thing, but Denver's not ranked that good right now compared to what we expected. They're actually doing a lot worse on it. And then Chargers were able to move around on them pretty good too. So there's an argument that Jake Browning might be able to come out there and do a little better against a Denver team. But Denver does still have quality players, quality, secondary and stuff. So I can understand that. But, like you said, it's tough to bench somebody like a Chase. But, if you're worried about that kind of repeat performance, I think that's what Drell's keying in on. If you have somebody else that you think will give you more of those points, but he could blow it up again and have a Jacksonville game, so it could be a boom and bust with him right now. So yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I don't know if it's a must sit, but I can understand what Jarrell's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. To follow up real quick, I just looked up real quick. Browning has thrown 5 interceptions in the last 2 weeks, and Minnesota put up 30 points on him last week. So that's going to affect Chase getting the ball. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll have to kind of just wait and see on that one, and see what happens.
Listen, I was right about Kamara. I'm going to be right about Chase.
You were right about Kamara. Hey,
that was balls, and we all got on you for that, and it cashed. So you were good on that one. I do agree. It's just I don't know, man. Like if you were to come to me and you were to say T. Higgins was your must sit, I would be 100% on board with that because I feel like T. Higgins is not nearly as good as Jamar Chase, but I feel like Jamar Chase is almost quarterback proven. And I think there's a chance. Like I know he's versing the Broncos. I know he has Jake Browning. I know that O-line's terrible. That dude still might have 30 points this weekend. That's just how good he is. He's a top 2 receiver in the league.
30 points. Come on.
Yeah.
He could. He very well could.
Well, to go along with what Zach said is one of the things I noticed this week is even last week when they did so bad, Chase still he was the target leader on the team. And then second was Noah Fant, that he was the tight end. So that's where I would say, I could understand the T. Higgins thing because he wasn't even second in targets last week,
right.
And this week I think people do expect, Chase to get probably a 10-plus target game against Denver because their defense is not as good as the Vikings right now. So it could be, but like you said, if he goes out there, the one thing that Jarrell mentioned, if Jake goes out there and throws a whole bunch of interceptions and they just, can't do anything, then he may hit this, but this is a big risk for his pick. He's either going to, blow it out of the water and people are going to go, wow, he was right. Or they're going to go, hey, you shouldn't have, bench Chase.
Yeah. And they're in Denver. So Jake Brown is going to go up there and he's not going to be able to breathe. Bro's not used to the mile high.
He'll be out there suffocating in the high air.
I will say, no matter what happens, because you have 2 ballsy picks. Because even Jackson Dart, in my opinion, is a ballsy must start. Yeah. So if Jackson Dart goes over his projection and Jamar Chase goes under his projection, I will make sure you get the A+ on the rankings this week. Okay,
Thank you, man.
You'll have it if it goes if it works out for you. I'll make sure. And I'll blaze you in the comments. I'll give you an extra long paragraph.
When you post a video, actually, I'll do that too. We got to take some screenshots, buddy. We got to take some screenshots.
Hell yeah! You're getting hate.
I only saw one. I didn't see as many hate comments. I saw one. I didn't see that one, and I went back to the video. But
dude, trust me, because I'm sure Shane saw
get a couple.
Make sure to cut this in the video. Be like, if you have guts enough to make a bad comment on my pick, have guts enough to leave it there when I am correct. Right, so I can come back and say something to you.
Yeah. Because it's the comment. It's funny too because the comments will be like, "Oh, I'll be here after the game," and then we go back and now the comments deleted. Like you lied.
Yeah, we're gonna start screenshotting that stuff, guys. So we're gonna catch you.
Oh man.
But all right, I think that's going to go ahead and do it for this podcast. We'll go ahead and wrap it up there. That is our must starts and sits for week 4. Look out for Baylor, our 5th co-host. We're going to go ahead and just post his on the TikToks. He couldn't make it tonight, so he's going to do his on his own. And make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment what you guys think. Did we get any wrong? Is there some must starts that you think? And just ask us some fantasy questions. If it's not on our TikTok, YouTube, whatever, we'll have the social media up here. We go live throughout the week, and I'm sure we'll be right there. Yep.
It's weird. My camera's messed up.
Different. There we go. Exactly. But that's where we're going to go ahead and throw it up on the board. So just make sure you guys go check those out, especially TikTok. We go live before games throughout the week to give any fantasy advice, just talk football, and just hang, guys. But, yeah, that's going to be it. So thanks for watching. See ya.
See ya.